setting, if not mind shifting to some degree, what Ruben has been requesting yesterday, because it is quite clear that we have seen a lot of evidence, and David is always looking for evidence. That's why I'm stressing this, that we can really generate value from doing archival and preservation in a proper way. So we have seen many examples where research results that have been researched a couple of years ago have been put into productive systems, and they have been tremendously successful, and some of them have even been tremendously short time and low cost in their setting up, because lessons have been learned. Of course, this is not true for some hard nuts, which we still have to chew on for a while, but at least for, as you said, documents and some media objects, we are pretty advanced in our understanding of the challenges and also of the available solutions for preservation. And we are even establishing somehow an early market of what kind of standards we have to follow, what kind of components and services we have available, some of them in open source, some of them maybe will make their way into proprietary solutions. But it is very interesting to see this happening at this time. And I think besides the open research challenges that we still have ahead of us in some of the challenging fields, namely e-science, we have to acknowledge that we really have made progress, and that we have to make sure that we start developing this niche market into some kind of mainstream activity. However, I haven't seen any venture capital representatives in this room, and I haven't seen, besides one exception, any funding agencies being present, and I haven't heard in the news that any government on this globe intends to spend the next billion of whatever money into preservation. So where does the money come from? I think we have seen a lot of evidence that if you do it properly, you can start generating, first of all, an attractive visibility of what your archive has as a valuable content and what can be a contribution not only to the societal demand, but also to some future business benefits where some companies or some academic communities or some research communities can start exploiting this content, and in this way it can become visible that the cost which has been spent in the initial investment of setting up the system, the collection and the organization around it, although it may have been high, that it pays back. I think this is the important message. And also I have learned that there are many more initiatives than I would have believed before coming here, which are already successful operating in this way on a global scale, specifically here in India, where we have seen tremendous catching up of what we have been showcasing as research results in the past European projects. We see your reports now that you have it already in productive operation. So I think this is really tremendous amount of catching up. And it helps us to showcase, also going back to Europe or to wherever in the world, that there is some very fruitful interaction between what some have been doing in the past and some others are doing now. So we have to continue such a communication, because it helps us also going back and to say, okay, what we have done is taken up, and there's further need for collaboration and communication, like setting up the Virtual Center of Excellence within ARPA. It is of course a reaction to a demand, because all these projects that have been done in Europe, they have created some expectation. Where can I go? Where can I get this? Where can I get help, consultancy? And we had to cater for it in this collaborative way. And maybe I had the feeling during your presentations that in India you are in a similar situation. You have some very successful and well-organized groups which have put out some reference projects which have a high visibility, and that has created now an expectation. Where can I become part of this? How can I share this knowledge? How can I train my staff, set up such a system? What's the difference between my repository, which is 5-6 years old and which I just thought is the best I could get, and now I'm hearing that it's not the thing that you need for the next 15 years. So this kind of interaction needs to be put into a channel, into some kind of communication, so that we can really bring it from a niche market and from a couple of isolated projects on a global scale into some collaboration that is working on the international level, and that is helping us to open up that emerging market in a very conservative way, not using venture capital funds, but simply from trying to find sustainable feeds of financial revenues that help us to prove that what we do has a value. I think that is what I have been taken from these 2 days in terms of sustainability of preservation. And for me, as I said, and I would like to conclude with this sentence, it has been very inspiring. Yeah.
Okay.
No, no,
Huh?
he's doing it.
Yes. Oh, thanks. See, my experience is basically with the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, where I was in charge of the Director Libraries, and now I am with the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts. One very important event which had occurred on 3rd of February is the launching of National Mission on Libraries. And the Government of India has agreed to set up a national virtual library. And there is a funding for that. And I believe the funding will be renewed in the next 5-year plan also. This is approximately 4,800 million rupees. And you can convert into dollar or euro, I don't know how to do it, but that is in Indian rupees, it is 4,800 million. Now these cultural objects, see, we have several cultural institutions. They are called memory institutions, and memories institutions have a mnemonic value. If you go to an archive, if you go to a heritage library like National Library Kolkata, or an institution like Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, you have the objects which have a high research and reference value. And it is very difficult to filter them or to select them, what to be digitized and what not to be digitized. So this National Virtual Library program, of course, the entire planning is to be done by the Government of India. I think they will take the help of NIC and C-DAC. I think that will take into consideration, and one of the objects, I mean, they have stated in their objective is to digitize the cultural material. That is a very broad object. Cultural material means archival records, and of course the manuscripts which you have in the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts. Some 200,000 manuscripts we have microfilmed and kept in a digital format. And we believe, and our predecessors have believed, that it is very essential to keep the cultural objects in microfilm form, and then for the access purpose it should be digitized. It's a very old concept, and Library of Congress is also following that concept, and we also still believe in that. Here, for the digital preservation, what I understand, because I am not a technical person, I told Mr. Atre, because I don't have any degree in any, I have a very long experience in digital preservation or digitization. What we feel is we need a different sort of infrastructure, different sort of manpower, and commitment on the part of the government to support it for a longer period. If that remains, I think we'll be able to, the National Virtual Library and the digitization program which the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts has started very recently in collaboration with the CDAC will be successful. Manpower in terms of well-trained manpower, and from where we'll get that type of manpower, I'm still doubtful, because see, in the corporate sector, the salaries are different. In the government sector, it is very difficult to retain the manpower. And you know, the India, if you want to preserve the cultural heritage, we have 16 languages, which is very widely read and used in this country. Many of the microfilm version of the manuscripts are in different languages. Even the National Library, Kolkata, finds it very difficult to recruit people who knows various Indian languages like Punjabi, Tamil, and Andhra Pradesh. They don't want to migrate to Calcutta. They want to remain in South. So these are the problems, but if there is a sustained funding and some sustainability, I would not use the word sustainability, it is sustained effort that is necessary. If there is a sustained effort on the part of the government, then I think this project will be successful. But the government, the knowledge about technology and how to apply it in a result-oriented manner, there's a huge gap in that at present. I think that will be, the gap will be bridged with the effort of organizations like CDAC, and we'll be able to do something in the future. But I believe in Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, the prototype digital library will still have, is quite successful, and we're trying to enlarge it. We are trying to address the IPR and the copyright issues. We are trying to convince the copyright owners of the manuscripts that we want to share the revenue with you. Sharing the revenue means if there is some used by the research scholars, a part of the revenue will go to you. With all these efforts, we are trying to sustain that digital library and try to expand it. And maybe within 2-3 years, with the help of the Ministry of Culture, which has given a very huge grant for our digital repository, we will be able to do that. So this in brief I wanted to tell. Thank you very much.
These 2 days I have heard many times the word training. We need to train people on what we have discovered, on tools, on methods, on the findings of our research, and so on. I have not heard the word education. And the thing is that training teaches people about problems we have encountered and about solutions we have developed. But it doesn't teach people how to deal with the future, with problems that have yet to come, and with methods that have yet to be discovered. You need a science and the knowledge of a science to do that. I think that what is actually the best way of sustaining digital preservation is sustaining knowledge and developing that knowledge. I think that what is needed is graduate programs of archival science at master and PhD level. And master level to produce professionals who can deal with unexpected and as well as with the past. The thing about archives is that when we get new things, we don't throw away the old things. So the knowledge that over time we acquire, we have to continue to pass it on because we still have those punched cards. We still have those old floppy disks. We still have parchments and papyrus. So it is not like we are trained in brand new things and we forget all the others. We need to build this knowledge, sustain it, and then all this knowledge will help us to develop new one. We have the foundation to develop new one. Archival science is a body of knowledge that includes theory, which is the whole of the ideas about what the material is, what records are, what data are, and their characteristics. It includes methods, which are all the ideas about how to create this material, how to maintain it, classify it, how to select it over time. You know, we have spoken about value so many times. Well, knowledge on how to assess value and select according to value has been developed over the centuries. In all of our countries, there is an enormous amount of knowledge. When we say, how do we decide what is the 5% of data we keep? We have methods for doing this. There are lots of methods that have been developed and tested over time. This stuff is taught through programs of education. We have to learn methods of arrangement and description. We have to learn methods of dissemination, retrieval, communication, reuse, conservation, because that is different from preservation, is when we have to take care of the media. It is also including all the knowledge of the scholarship developed over time, the history of the way we have treated the material, the history of the various types of material, economy, how to do a budget for an archives, facilities, what are the right facilities, the right temperature, the media, all of this. Yes, it is 2 intense years of education. It is 25 courses on how to deal with this material. But you understand that when you have this background, whenever you encounter a new problem, you have so much behind you that will contribute to understand and find a solution fast. The doctoral program is important because it is important to conduct research according to the methodologies of your own discipline, according to the methodologies of your own science, not just taking any methodology here and there. And the reason why there have been successful research projects which have been based on experiential learning. I learn as I go, but there have been enormous failures, and there have been lots of money wasted precisely because one moved tentatively rather than having a big background of knowledge to support the direction in which one goes. So I would say my 5 minutes are my pitch for archival education. I wish India would invest some of its national budget in building master's programs of archival education and doctoral programs that teach people to conduct research in the field of archival preservation and library preservation. These are different disciplines, but they also, a master of library science is important to do research on preservation in the library field. So please, yes, don't think just of getting funding for this preservation project or that preservation project, but something that is more investing in the future of the next generations of preservers and build solid programs that educate them. Thanks.
Thank you. Is on okay?
No,
Yeah.
not working. Is it working? Yeah, it's working. It's working.
perfectly.
This is working.
This is also working, yeah.
The light is not coming, but it is
Yeah,
working.
one. Thank you. Yeah, there we go. Double. Good evening to all of you. In fact, of course, I hope all of you had a very good meeting all the 2 days. In fact, yesterday, whatever I could be here is a great. In fact, I always was interested in the preservation. Actually, I'm also thinking to see what the shape of the whole activity. Is it an elephant? Is it a tiger? Or, in the sense, can we see, what is that we want to achieve? kind of the shape we can this one give. Then we know, some kind of elements, the legs, hands, fingers, probably all of them become the part of the shape of the, the object. I think if we can create, all of us together can create a, some kind of the, image of the what we are trying to do. So probably then we can add up all the elements can do. That is, I feel, and some of the elements of the what the object, I don't know what kind of object it will be. I mean, what is the importance to everybody in the sense that it can be government departments, it can be in ordinary man. Yesterday somebody was telling me what does it mean to each of the stakeholders. I think then what kind of opportunities it does offer for a kind of happiness reason, or for the business, or for the anything. Probably we can really identify the opportunities. In fact, I am very happy that Indira Gandhi Center has taken a lead. In fact, they have been thinking very strongly, they have been interacting, and we are sure in the culture, already, some activities already this one there. In fact, some of my initial, contemplation is also in this same area. And for example, sometimes I see, there so much imagination. Of course, you can imagine so many things. Sometimes I see, if I know Delhi, New Delhi, if I am able to create a virtual walkthrough 1945, and if I am able to create, historically, 1945, 1950, I think this kind of information is really important to really create information. And of course, it is important to create it for historical reasons, and also probably it is so much of business opportunity for the people who want to make movies or anything. I mean, so much of the history is a very good element for creating so much of value, even for businesses also. I think probably we have to, what I feel, of course, we can take, all the possible areas, maybe some of the possible areas, and see what is that we want to achieve in each of the areas. And some things we are, of course, very much sure. In the art and culture and everything, probably there is some clarity what is that we wanted to preserve, and how to preserve it is an issue, of course, but at least first of all to start with what is that, of course, you want to preserve. And something like yesterday our secretary was talking about the agricultural land records, that we know it's important for the government, important for the people. There is no option. We have to really preserve the records for the period of this one time. And what kind of information you want to keep it? Is only just data, numbers and GPS coordinates you want to create, or you want to create some kind of the images as a part of that? Some contemplation, because it need not be only extension of the what we were doing earlier, and what kind of new opportunities are offered through the digital preservation, and what does it make meaningful to governments and also businesses. Probably those are some of the things I feel. And once we create the interest among the people, all the stakeholders, probably that's where I think one is that creating certain documentation in each of the areas or some of the areas, and as all of us know that maybe some trying to create some kind of awareness programs then, so that we will be able to enthuse the stakeholders. And I was also thinking about, because I think so many people can contribute to this area, some kind of the open source movement, because some of the students or faculty, some of the education people, I think they are the very good source of creating technologies. And while you create the shape of the whole activity, then we can identify these are the technologies I require. Then we can offer the requirements, and I'm sure many intellectuals, students and the professors, they can create a lot of technologies, and of course in terms of the complexity, the technology itself is a very complexity. Today I don't know whether of course is there any digital, is there any technology which can preserve a digital document for so many years. We know all the magnetic medias and memories, everything. Probably we also look at it, what are the technologies requirements also that will also drive some of these semiconductor people or whatever to really getting into long-term preservable the hardware device also. And in terms of the robust technologies, I think very much important. I feel, unless preservation is about actually how to preserve something, I feel is a robust technologies are, of course, very much important. Here, the robust technology would not mean only what you are able to put it now will be available there. Is also those kind of things are true for and if you are talking about a your picture or a shape or a solid object. But here, as you said in the presentation, it is a dynamic situation. It can be very simple to very complex. How to really preserve various programs and of course interplay between them. I think that is where I think probably a lot of research is possible, probably, and also a lot of intellectual property generation is also possible. I think probably what ultimately I feel, if we can really come out with a kind of policy document which can be used by various governments. Of course, I think all of us benefit throughout the globe. And from Government of India side, in fact, we look forward strongly to take it forward. In fact, we have been for the past, I think, 7 to 8 years, we have been spending time on this one. Of course, we are able to take it forward. In fact, we are extremely happy. But then, what is that we want to achieve? In fact, we want to see what way we can achieve and put a kind of road maps. Is it possible to create? Are we ready to create a road map? Sometimes it appears very difficult to do, but I think if you create a road map, I think probably it's possible to achieve. I think some of the examples in semiconductor devices, I think people have achieved, I think, whatever they have created the road maps. That is what I would feel. And also from Government of India side, we will be very keenly interested, provided we are able to really create a value to all the stakeholders. And of course, as all of us are talking offline and also yesterday, how to really bring in various stakeholders in terms of creating technologies and also putting in monies and everything. If you are able to enthuse the real stakeholders, I'm sure money will flow in. If we can operate in terms of kind of public-private partnership, that will be, of course, wonderful. In fact, Government of India, we also talk about, in fact, I've been operating things in public-private partnership. Even assuming we have sufficient money from government to put in, probably not very sustainable in the long run. What is really important is to really how to bring in people to operate these things in public-private partnership. And this is what. And of course, I look forward in a session to. If we can really provide some recommendations for kind of what kind of things we want to. Maybe some kind. Yesterday, Secretary was talking about national policy. And if we can really policies, is it a standards or is it some technologies? Probably it will help us to really translate them, some of them into action plans. And I look forward and getting some recommendations from this conference. Also, the an excellent committee to take to Government of India, to translate some of these recommendations into action plans. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. So I will try to contribute some points to the subject. Although the topic of this panel is focusing on sustenance of digital preservation and trusted digital repositories, I should first talk about the creation of trusted digital repositories in the context of India. Because as of today, although the pilot projects have been initiated, we cannot really say that this is a digital repository which has got all the aspects, and we have modeled it as per the best practices, and now this has come into existence and we need to sustain it. So we have yet to reach that stage. Now, there are 2-3 examples which I will share, the scenarios. We defined the digital preservation standard, which has been duly notified by the ministry. But what we actually envisage on the ground level is that the various e-governance implementations, the mission mode projects which have been started, in various states of India. For instance, the e-district, we have created the e-district infrastructure and citizen services are being given. Now, how the state data centers can turn into trusted digital repositories, how they can take this role, what is the mechanism for that, what kind of infrastructure they will require, what kind of competencies they will require to build, what kind of tools and technologies they will require to have. This needs to be really defined, and if it has to be put into action, what kind of readiness we require to really execute it on ground. The second thing is various institutions where the computerization has taken place and the e-governance projects where the electronic records are being created. If they were to do the digital transfer of the records to these trusted repositories, how is that going to happen? Because today there is no policy framework which tells them that capture your electronic records and transfer it to the repository. This is a gray area, it is not defined. So unless there is a policy framework, this will not happen. The standards will only provide the specification that if you were to do it, this is how you do it. But unless there is an instruction, unless there is a policy which says that you have to do it with this kind of periodicity, unless the policy framework defines the role of the repositories and creates the required ecosystem to be able to execute that role, this is not going to happen. The Center of Excellence at C-DAC is presently playing the role of a technology developer. We are developing the tools and technologies, we are developing standards, we are building the competencies required for that. We are also working in collaboration with the domain institutions, whether it is the National Archives of India, IGNCA, or eCourt, or some of the e-governance projects that we have. So in this project, it is more of a sort of voluntary kind of getting together. I mean, we have got together because we feel interested in this project. But if this effort was to go on beyond the boundaries of the project, then there has to be a joint commitment. There has to be a commitment from the domain institution, and that commitment has to be of long-term nature. It cannot be for a limited duration. There are some practical problems that we see. For instance, it has been a very steep journey, and many times we feel exhausted, and our turnaround time to these institutions sometimes is quite a lot, because we just run out of the strength. We are not able to phone them back. Sometimes it happens like that, because now at National Archives of India we have this has been a very good experience. They have set up the network, they have created a lab, they have with 10 computers, and we have recruited through this project some 10 operators who will do the ingest, because for the ingest at present there is no dedicated human resource available. So 10 operators have been put in. Now the servers and the storages which we have set up over there, who is going to maintain them? As long as the server is up, we can provide some support remotely from Pune, through the network. But if it is down, or if it crashes for some reason, who is going to rescue it? So we have recruited some system administrators and desktop engineers with National Archives. The same kind of arrangement we have done with the IGNCA, where IGNCA is also in the process of putting together a lab, and we have recruited operators to do the ingest, who will take the data, process it, and ingest it. And we also have the system administrator recruited over there. So 20 people here, 20 people over there. But it is still not enough. So to really to have, if it is a digital repository, we also need a significant volume. Now beyond the project duration, how this is going to continue? That is a big question. It will continue only if from the domain institution there is a commitment, there are resources made available to them, and there is 100% ownership to take it forward in this fashion. So this is something. So this is where I feel the parent ministries or the government has a very important role to play, to give that mandate, to create those resources, and and that positive impetus to set it going for the years to come. Only then these repositories will come into existence. So once they are in existence, then the sustenance will sort of come into play. Sustenance is not just the financial activity. I mean, one always tends to think about funding, that if there is money, things will sustain. So that is not so. So all the components of the ecosystem have to be put in place. So for the sustenance, the most important thing is that we have to resolve the copyright issues. We have to make the information accessible to the designated users, because I remember one incident with David. I mean, we were at Oxford, and maybe we were discussing, and that time I told him that during the evolution, the human beings, during the evolution from monkey to man, we lost the tail because it was not in use. It could not have been preserved because it was not in use, so it just lost. We just lost it. So unless what we are preserving is put into use, unless it is demanded by the users, unless it is being consumed, nobody can save it, and no funding can justify its existence. So to be able to make the information usable and accessible to people, we will have to have a lot of value addition to the digital resources that we have. I can give an example. We are working with a lot of museums, and the virtual museums are very soon going to be a reality. So we have been trying to persuade to them that make these virtual museums accessible to all the schools. Now within the Maharashtra state itself, we have something like 50,000 schools. Why can't, even if you charge 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees for an year subscription fee, 50,000 schools and 1,000 rupees subscription fee for an year, that's a lot of money. You will be able to sustain things out of that. But make things available to the potential users. Let teachers design their course curriculum using this information. So preservation is not really constrained to building the repositories and guarding them 24/7. It's not that, but value-added application, and that's where we have a lot of scope for developing new technologies. For instance, the data mining, knowledge development, the content-based search and retrieval, meaning making out of various things. The research scholars, essentially what Google is doing. Google is providing information, knowledge services through the search and retrieval. So all those things will become integral part of these repositories if they were to make sense and use and some value to the people. So as far as the technology development is concerned, we have to keep funding the technology development in order to generate value out of these resources. We will have to put in resources to create these repositories, and there has to be a commitment from the domain institutions as well as the technology. So there is a kind of joint commitment has to come in. And so such joint commitment can come in provided if there is a broader consensus, there is a national program which is encompassing, wherever the digital, wherever the bits are getting created, everyone should be covered, whether it is the scientific data or cultural heritage, the digital data within the cultural heritage domain, or whether it is banking, finance, or defense, all the insurance domain, wherever it qualifies for preservation should be covered through this program, and a broader encompassing policy which guides it through. So these are the comments that I have. Thank you very much.
So I think we've got some time left for questions and discussion. We've had a lot of calls to action, visions, addressing different sides of the problem. Could I ask for some questions and comments? Elizabeth?
There's one theme has come up in two different ways, and I would like to try and crystallize, if I can, those two things together, because they both want the same answer. Matthias, you mentioned how to get more funding, and you almost got onto what I wanted to say, but not quite. You sort of skated around it. And then Dinesh, you were talking about how to sustain the projects that are already ongoing. How do we keep them going in the future? I think the answer lies in the difference between push and pull. By that I mean it's not just only, and you must still do this, it's not only the project operators pushing their product, pushing to say we are doing good things. You've got to demonstrate the usage. If the users want it, they will pull, and the users will create the demand, and the demand will open the eyes of the funders who will see that what you are doing has real value. And that is how you promote sustainability, I believe.
Any comments from the panel?
Yeah, I think you should. I think in fact, we should try to get the demand and then see what kind of things we have to do to really satisfy demand. I think probably I couldn't agree more with you. Thank you. And I have one question. In fact, always preservation. Your name, that of Alliance for Permanent Preservation. That it indicates you want to preserve it. But sometimes we also interpret, collecting a lot of data, making it accessible to people. That could go partially as a part of the normal activity of any digital data. Wherever we think the application for health data, we create the data, make it accessible, wherever business is there. So then, how do we really, in the sense, include what to include as a matter of the digital preservation, what not to include in that normal operation will happen anyway. Wherever you have the business opportunities and practical applications, those are happening. Is it what we generally call the preservation? Is it a main focus for the preservation, or what you think, like in the classical definition of the preservation? Of course, is important to preserve history, preserve documents for the we maybe require them in the future, so that we have to really preserve them in the future. Though whatever you are preserving, they can be made accessible to people. But I think we also need some clarity on the focus of the what we are trying to talk about under the name of the preservation, I feel.
Well, I think it's just generally a difficult topic, and in terms of what we preserve. Luciana, I think, makes very good points about need for education to help to professionals to decide, supplemented, I guess, from what other people have said, by a demand pull, which ties in with what Ruben said.
I can make two comments about this, or two facets of the same thing. On the one hand, yes, Elizabeth is right. I do remember in the 70s, when I worked in the State Archives of Rome, nobody ever had the genealogical research. We didn't even know what genealogists were. And then this book came out in the mid-70s by Alex Haley called Roots. And all of a sudden, all the Americans came at our doors. They wanted to know their roots. And all the pressure of the genealogical groups was such that last year the Library and Archives Canada was obliged to make a contract with Ancestry.com, so basically the alliance with the private industry, to be able to serve all these genealogists coming out of nowhere. And so all the records that were preserved for all other sorts of reasons, for legal reasons, for accountability reasons, as evidence, as for history, whatever, now they were all used for completely different reasons. The other point that I would like to make is that if it were true that without use there is no preservation, we would have no archives prior to 1794, when the French Revolution declared the right of people to access to information. The fact is, records are preserved, first of all, for the needs of the creator. Who is the biggest creator? It's the state. The state is interested in preservation no matter what, especially a democratic state like India is accountable to the people, can throw away those records, is obliged to preserve them for all, selectively for long periods of time. So they need to have their preservation system, and you need to make their argument. That, I mean, it came 1630, the first treatise of archival science. The Bishop of Venice stated that archives are so much better than navy yards and armies, because it is better to win by reason than by weapon, by right than by wrong. And when was it? Last year, then Malaysia lost to Singapore one island because of the records preserved in the archives of Singapore. These are the arguments that you need to make to get the stable funding, not a foundation that gives you a couple of million. You want the state to invest in this. You want a stable force behind it. And that's so if you say we have no users, we have no preservation, convince these people they are the users. It's the government is the biggest user. The industry is the user. The industry can't do any research and get any money without having medical records. How the pharmaceutical industry is going to do anything without the medical records? So you have the arguments. You would have so many more if you had education programs with all the history of all of this that will give you so many arguments to support, with evidence, with hard evidence, why preservation is so important.
I would just like to further add. Actually, at CDAC we had an internal seminar like this very recently. So at that time, in order to put this subject more in the perspective of our other members in CDAC, I gave the example of the human brain itself, because in the brain you have a short-term memory, broadly, in simple terms, the way it is understood, and you have a long-term memory. The short-term memory is used for the momentary actions and momentary things that we do. Like maybe I have scribbled something which is of momentary use to me. After maybe 2-3 days, I would have forgotten it. So that's how the memory is managed. So the trivial is forgotten and lost. Long-term memory is, now during this conference itself, you might have captured certain images and certain maybe portions of the speeches which will stay on for a longer time. So something which is really connected to you emotionally, or maybe you are convinced. So those things are stored in the long-term memory. Now giving access to these memories, you use internal mechanisms to bring it out, relate it with different experiences and so on. So exactly in the same way, when it comes to the social memory, what is the social long-term memory? It is reflected in the artifacts. It is reflected in the digital domain. Every activity that we perform in the digital domain has certain element of short-term and something that has to last for long-term. We want to keep it for long-term. So this is exactly the reflection of our internal mechanisms. So the retention rules and everything, it's not an external creation, but it is our internal mechanism itself. The brain functions in the same way. So this has to be created in the digital systems and the digital working, because we have seen that the e-governance systems are not distinguishing between the temporary short-term records and the long-term electronic records. As a result, the databases are inflating, because the trivial is also maintained, and something which is of permanent nature is also maintained in the same database. As a result, the databases and storage requirements are going. So this has to be introduced so that the difference is there, and these record management schedules can be automated and brought into the e-governance systems, and the long-term stuff is removed from the current databases and it is transferred to the repositories.
So, just trying to think what's common between, or what the differences are. I think that what I've heard is consistent with what Luciano was talking about. The problem that certainly we have in Europe and the US is that governments tend, apart from very specific things, not to want to commit to funding forever. And that, I think, leads us in the way of talking about value and either exposing value or increasing value. And I think that's how things tie together. And one last thought about comparisons with Europe. I mean, it's very difficult for organizations to receive funding then to immediately transfer into a sort of more commercial mindset. Usually there's a sort of transition of two lots or something of funding to aid to first of all provide some proof of effectiveness, and then to move into a gradual transition to a rather more commercial basis. But I would like to ask for a few more questions, but actually I was hoping that people at the back would raise their hands. But they always talk.
Can I address your comment directly? It's not a question, it's a statement. I've now worked at 2 state archives that have dedicated funding specifically to their digital archives programs by the state legislatures because the arguments were based in public value.
Great.
We went in saying this is going to cost. There will be no ROI from a traditional sense, but we are going to protect that record, and we are going to be the guardians of the moral and physical defense. We approached it from a traditional archival science perspective,
That's
made
great.
the arguments,
so
and got dedicated
so they
funding.
put 100 million in a bank, and you're assured of the interest. Is that right?
We have every
I'm
year
joking.
special dedicated funding
But-
outside of other normal funding, so the program cannot be cut.
Point taken. But I would be interested in. There's a gentleman there with a hand raised. Somebody at the back. Thanks. I didn't mean to shut you up. It's just.
Regarding the funding point is coming in the digital preservation, this is a main issue in our countries like that, where the funding is the main issue. In my point of view, if we will just keeping the digitization of our archives record or any collections of record, first time we are making one database of the metadata. Another is we are creating the image database. The main part of the fund which will be spent on the image database creation or image creation. If we will, in first 10, we will only create the catalog or metadata of the physical things or physical collection, and we will put it on some public domain, and later on let it be remain to the user who will say, I want the digital image of this, and we will put the digital image on demand basis. Once the user say, I want the digital image of that, then only we will put the digital image, in spite of just make the digital collection of all the collections. This is my suggestion.
Any response from
Yeah. Actually, normally the repository portal, the dissemination package is configured based on the what has been requested by the user and what he is eligible to receive. If he is a subscriber, if he has paid the money, and then only it is made available to him. Everything is not made public at the same time.
No, that is, I am not saying about we should make it public. I am simply saying in Government of India, all the projects which is running on a digitization project, there is a concept that first we are creating the reference media or we are creating the catalog. And the second thing is we are creating simultaneously the digital images of that. Because the user at the end will get both the things. User first see just like in Google's only, in Google search engine, first you have the text data to search on that thing. Later on it will come the image, later on it will come the Google's site maps and different things. Same way my suggestion is that in the digitization program, we should prepare the list or catalog of the collections we have and let the user should decide ki I want the digital image of this. Once he make a demand, then we have an opportunity to upload the digital image that time on that.
Yeah. I think more or less, I think we have said the same things in different words.
Just one minute. I think this is a very important point he has raised. See, in our country, the many digitization projects, they are done in a dispersed manner in remote places. They get some grant from the National Digital Library of India, they start digitizing the material. But the creation of metadata, what has been digitized, in what form it is available, that part is still very weak, and he is right about that.
Okay.
The cataloging or the metadata creation of the digital material in a sequence which can be easily accessed and easily understood by the user with the standard terminology or a terminology which is user friendly. That part is very weak, and most of the state archives are very backward in our country, I believe, because I have visited many states, and most of the time the archives is locked. I mean, it is closed. I don't know why. And what I admire our historians who have started writing history, which is called subaltern history, history from below, local history, on the basis of the local evidence, oral history, by oral traditions, etc. they have recorded, and we appreciate their effort. They have gone to those archives and collected all this material. But I think their effort will be largely, I mean, they will have to make less effort if this metadata is created of the archival material. And that part is very weak. Though for digitization, some money is given, but for metadata creation, I think the people are a little bit hesitant, or they are not sensitive to this issue that we should create the metadata.
That's right. So more questions? So I really do want to see if we can get people who haven't spoke or asked questions. Otherwise...
I haven't asked a question yet.
You've spoken.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I just wondered, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. We've talked a lot about demand and commercialization in terms of sustainability models, but I wondered about your thoughts in relation to the movement towards open access and open data and open government data, and the challenges in balancing that and also working in government heritage sector where you're pushed to commercialize your content that's already been paid for a couple of times by the public. So I wondered if you have any thoughts on the role of open access in the sustainability of digital repository content.
My immediate thought is that, I mean, Google has a lot of kind of open access, and what they're actually selling is eyeball time, and that's the value. So you don't need to monetize everything. You just need to have something attractive, at least if you adopt that sort of model.
So selling advertising based on...
Well, if you think about, I mean, I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying we should think broadly. Any other comments?
Well, these are all separate issues. Open access, open data, and big data are three completely different areas. I think that probably you're talking about open data. That is the right of the citizens to have access to the data in the hands of the government. This is very much going on in Canada, is a big concern because it costs a fortune. It costs a fortune because you often cannot give the records out. You have to give the data, which means that there has to be traceability of the data to the record if their authenticity is contested. And that means that you also have to preserve the records from which you have taken the data, even if they had been destined to be destroyed after a certain period. So all of a sudden, this revolution also our disposal schedules, the disposition of all government records, the way of access, all the personnel that is required to take the data and keep them traceable. This is expensive, and in fact, in Canada, we cannot charge the people, but they should be charged, I think.
So, I can see Ruben bouncing up and down there because he introduced this topic at the yesterday morning.
Okay, let's see. I think that all the different points of view that we are mentioning right now are all compatible. Let's see, when we were talking about going from niche to mainstream, Mainstream is 8 billion people, plus several hundreds of millions of companies, plus 250 national governments, thousands of national authorities. It's impossible that one model fits everybody. So here we have, I will say, 2 or 3 different elements. One is called segmentation of markets. When I was calling for segmentation of markets, it's because there are different needs that are all legitimate. So we have to do an extra mile, and what Luciana has been advocating for education, I 122% agree with you. The only thing I will put on top is teach the researchers how to sell their ideas to others. Because, let's see, out of this door, the interest for digital preservation starts to diminish under a logarithmic curve, okay? So it is us that we have to convince. The word argument or selling point or value proposition, call it whatever you want. There are different, the ways to Rome are multiple. So we need to work on that diversity. That's the reason I need to understand which is the, let's see, with the roots thing, it was so clear. The need was very well identified, so you could act immediately into answering that. And we need to have the second big thing that I have not heard it along these 2 days, although I fully agree with Matthias of how enlightening for me has been really, really refreshing, and I'm going back to Europe with a refreshing idea that here, guys, you're doing things while we are still talking, which for me is quite a lesson. And the other key word is innovation. And innovation is a state of mind. Again, part of that mindset shift. We have to have innovation as one of our drivers because everybody's saying things will change. If things will change, we will have to adapt, and we will have to keep delivering value either for free, either under open, either under a business. I don't know which is the business model, but the thing is the attitude that we know is going to change. So we have to be prepared, and we have to be the first ones to be prepared. I cannot rely on the government, on the industry, or even on the society. It is my duty. I'm on a mission. I'm the one who has to be prepared and help the others, and this is my last word, help the others to identify where are the potential lines of value in what we are preserving, because we know our stuff better than anybody else. You have seen Luciana, and you have seen Adam. They are passionate about what they know. Nobody is as passionate in this room as they are, and this is the example to follow. Thank you very much.
I just looked at Dinesh. Is it okay?
No, yeah,
Time?
of course, yeah.
Good, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the subject of funding has been raised a couple of times in the discussions in the last 2 days. In the context of preservation of historical data, where it was said that the analog data is as precious as the digital data and it needs to be preserved. Today again we are discussing the same subject, and if the governments were convinced that they are the users and this data is precious, we would not be discussing this subject, because then we can take the funding from the government for granted. The fact that we are discussing this subject is that the governments are not convinced today that they should be funding this topic. Two of the speakers here raised an issue of public-private funding or participation, financial participation from the participating agencies. In the projects that we've done so far, agencies have participated by providing their expertise. They have provided their time and their valuable expertise to the projects. Some projects have taken off by way of larger scale deployments by the organizations themselves. In the Indian context, I don't think we are at a situation where we can bank on PPP model for digital preservation or bank on funding from the participating institutions for the purpose of digital preservation. I think in the next phase, whatever we are planning, we should plan for a reasonable period of time without critically depending on funding from the participating institutions. That's my comment as far as preservation is concerned.
Maybe I think I would request Dr. Sinha to share his thoughts. I mean, though he is not saying, I will still request.
No, I have consciously avoided saying it because as Mr. Taneja, who has been very active till date or to some time earlier in the Ministry of IT, now he is just superannuated, but still he is connected with it. So that I will just tell you a few things about IGNCA, Indira Gandhi for National Center for Arts, and many of you were talking about the usage. I was, as earlier I told that I was quote unquote consultant to them in the name of United Nations way back in late 90s. And that was the first time IGNCA put their, not data, but many kind of cultural images and all those things. And at the time, the issue was coming whether it should be made public or not. Somehow I could convince the people that at least a smaller size image and all those things, which is not that much important about it, should be put it. Okay? And I really could convince, and I remember at the time who was the head of the computer informatics laboratory, he told me, sir, you are forcing me when in my lab, per week there are only 4 or 5 people visits. So putting on this internet, what extra will come? So I told just I am your senior or a consultant or a guide. I had taught him in IIT. So I told you are my student also. So just take it as an order. A guru telling to his student. And that was actually by the time I was no more consultant. It was just my relation was only professional kind of thing. And as far as I recollect, around 2000 kind of thing, the hit of Indira Gandhi National Center for Art, okay, had crossed more than 1 lakh, which is 100,000, okay, per month. And Dr. Sanjay Goyal, who was at the time head, he was trying to inform me every month, sir, the number has increased to 120,000, 1,30,000. Earlier, on the website was controlled by NIC. NIC used to publish who is the number 1 among the site with the hit. And IGNCA, at the time, I just don't know the number. It must be very high even today. I am 100% sure. If it is not number 1, it might be only number 2 and number 3. Okay? So many of the people, and I really feel not that much happy that why IGNCA doesn't publish this. Okay? They should keep publishing. Okay? Because at a time only when they became number 2, he told it is President Abdul Kalam thing has become number 1. At the time our president was a scientist. So I'm just telling this, the usage wise, but it was a free usage. Okay? And I got it analyzed also during that time that who are using it. Okay? And let me tell you, more than 90% was being used from outside India. Okay? Around 70% from US, and later on, further analyzing, I could find out that for their school task and all those kind of things who were doing about India and a culture of India and a different kind of things. Okay? So I'm just trying to say, see here the usage wise, okay, even today, Dr. Rao told about that just like Google Maps, we also have Indian data by the ISRO. And I'm saying that this is not really known. Even to me, it is not known. If it is an open public wise, in place of Google, we will go to your site. Okay? But it's not known. So I'm just telling this one other data. So this is number just to tell that usage wise, whether you are getting money out of it or not, it's very high. But the important point now coming to from what we did take out from here is that so far as digital preservation is concerned, knowledge-wise, awareness-wise, that we will be losing it. Some organization like ISRO and Atomic Energy and Space, they might be knowing about it because their day-to-day operation depends upon that. But other organization may not be. And in Indian scenario, it's all different department. It's always line department which funds. Okay? So some sort of a cooperative kind of thing has to be done. In an Indian scenario, I'm just trying to say. And when Mr. Taneja was saying that we can't rely on the each line department. Today, at present, of course, to start with, DIT did it as a and build up the competency kind of thing. And Dinesh and his team and C-DAC and his team all are doing very good work. But these other line departments are also brought together. And today I got to know that big amount of funding is there. And I hope your group should put some portion of funding for digital preservation. Okay? Like in India, when a budget comes, they say, so much funding, around 10% for Northeast. or during Rajiv Gandhi time, it was decided that any department whose funding is going, 2% is for computerization. Okay? And that was the reason all bank computerization and other things happened in 80s in India. So I'm just trying to say that we have to also involve, because the records and data and all those things. As a DIT, we can only go as a technology and competence and all those kind of things. But these are the push kind of things which we are doing. The knowledge-wise, it is not that there is always that we don't know kind of thing. We now know. Okay? As other important thing which Dinesh earlier told, that we have to look at to make few trusted digital repository. Earlier, it was also informed how many data centers are there. And I felt bad that none of the data center in charge came to here. I just wanted one of the two data centers to convert it into trusted digital repository, at least. DIT itself is in charge of that. And I will request Ram Raju and other to do that. And similarly, some sort of a bringing all these people together and the awareness side has to be done at an immediate level. The second, taking from Louisiana, in India there are many places these information science degrees are given. And they are the most of the time people who are going into this archival or library or all those places, unless until you have that information science degree. So there also, that was my suggestion as a part of this project itself, that have a course content kind of thing on two fields. One on the information scientist and archivist, what they should know, and there are centers. And similarly, other side, on the technology side for master's degree kind of thing, or a special paper on the BTech degree, what should be so that they're corresponding. When yesterday I was trying to bring out whether you people are thinking like that or not. So we are just thinking in that line, okay? But in place of why telling it, I just wanted your suggestion first so that I can correct myself like that. And I will just, and the other thing which I am looking on behalf of India-wise, that there should be mechanism for a continuous cooperation with APA or European body as such. And it has to be equal kind of thing. Okay, we can put some money, and some money has been already given by DIT, if I know last year itself, that some European thing, that this much money is allocated, but nothing like coming correspondingly on the European side. So you can, Matthias and David, you can think about those kind of things, because something when it starts, then both starts finding positive aspect. And as I'm trying to tell to my European friends, okay, that professionally we have sufficient number of good people in last 5-6 years itself, thanks to DIT and others, and IGNC and others. They are very, very good professionals. So even if they are visiting for a short while to you, you will benefit perhaps more. They will also equally benefit. Okay. So I think this is another dimension you should think about it. Okay, so this commitment from, I know from DIT side, already there is some money allocated. In India, always done like that, as Mr. Goswami told. This much money has been allocated. Okay, now it is the next level people how to convert into programs or a project. Okay? So this is just in very brief, unless until you ask. Since I am not connected to any of the department, I have always operated freely and forcing just by quote unquote professional knowledge try to convince them. Okay, I have never used I have never acquired any authority. Thanks.
So, well, thanks for that. I'm a little bit afraid that we might be thrown out of this hall in a few minutes. So I don't know whether I'll give the last word to Dinesh.
No, I think
I would like to interrupt. I think on behalf of the invited speakers, and maybe you share my comment in the audience, I would like to thank the responsible organizers for having us here. And also, I'm sorry, David, but that has to be said. I really would like to thank you for having us here, and also for setting up an environment which is really state of the art, and we have not been missing anything here, which has helped a lot besides the inspiring subjects and results we have seen, but also the environment and your hospitality and the professional organization of this workshop and conference has been really of a great value, and I would like to thank you, and I'm looking forward to see such things happen more often.
I would just like to express my gratitude and thankfulness to all of you for participating in this conference and honoring our invitations. Thank you very much, and it has been a worthwhile experience. I hope that this will certainly take this forward. It will give the required momentum in respective domains for each individual. I hope that this will certainly give some momentum to take this subject forward. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Yeah. So with this, we will be closing the conference, but we have something. Richa will announce it, and then we will close it. Yeah.
Thanks to all the dignitaries. I request Dr. David Giaretta to present the conference mementos as a token of our gratitude to Mr. P.R. Goswami.
Yeah, with this we close the conference, and thank you very much.
Like doing my